The humid Virginia air still thick with the stench of victory, General Robert E. Lee makes his move. After Chancellorsville, the South is jubilant, but their resources dwindle, their hopes pinned on one audacious gamble, to invade the North. 60,000 Confederate boots stomp across the Potomac, a tide of gray steel surging towards Pennsylvania, carrying the fate of a nation. Lee envisions more than mere raiding. He seeks to shatter Northern will, to relieve war-torn Virginia, perhaps even to force an end to the brutal conflict. He dreams of capturing Harrisburg, threatening Philadelphia, igniting dissent in the Union capital itself. This is his final, desperate bid for Confederate independence, a high-stakes chess match where every move carries unimaginable cost. For weeks, the Confederate Army of Northern Virginia marches north, a river of men, horses, and wagons stretching for miles. They sweep through Maryland towns, their ragged but proud ranks a stark contrast to the prosperous Union countryside. Civilians watch, some terrified, others defiant, as this gray wave pushes deeper into enemy territory, hungry and relentless. South of the Susquehanna, chaos reigns in the Union High Command. President Lincoln, frustrated by General Hooker's inertia, makes a drastic change. Just 3 days before the looming confrontation, Major General George Gordon Meade is thrust into command of the Army of the Potomac. A competent but cautious engineer, Meade suddenly bears the crushing weight of Union survival on his shoulders. Lee, convinced the Union Army is far to his south, spreads his corps wide, foraging for supplies and gathering intelligence. Unbeknownst to him, Meade's forces are rapidly closing the gap, a vast, coiled serpent moving north. The two titans, each blind to the other's exact position, are on a collision course, drawn by an invisible, magnetic pull towards a small crossroads town in Pennsylvania. The small town of Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, offers little strategic value, yet fate draws them here. A network of 10 roads converges, making it a natural hub. More prosaically, Confederate scouts, specifically Lieutenant General A.P. Hill's corps, hear whispers of a shoe factory and desperately needed footwear. They push forward, unaware that Union cavalry is already waiting. On the morning of July 1, just outside Gettysburg, the first fateful shots ring out. Brigadier General John Buford's Union cavalry, dismounted and dug in, suddenly finds itself facing the vanguard of Confederate General Haight's division. Vastly outnumbered, Buford's troopers unleash a devastating volley, buying precious hours, sacrificing themselves to hold the vital high ground. The sound of battle carries for miles, signaling trouble. Major General John Reynolds, one of the Union's most respected commanders, gallops forward with his I Corps. He arrives just in time, rallying the embattled cavalry, bravely directing his troops into the fray. But as he urges his men onward, a sniper's bullet finds him, striking him down instantly, a tragic omen for the bloody day. Throughout the scorching afternoon of July 1, the fighting intensifies. Union lines, battered and outflanked, begin to buckle. General Oliver O. Howard's 11th Corps arrives but quickly collapses under relentless Confederate pressure. Thousands of Union soldiers stream back through Gettysburg, retreating in disarray, desperate to find safety on the high ground south of town, Cemetery Hill. The thin Union lines, already stretched past breaking point, crack under the relentless Confederate surge. General Oliver O. Howard's 11th Corps, exhausted and outflanked, buckles, unleashing a torrent of terrified men into the streets of Gettysburg itself. Chaos reigns as cannon fire rips through buildings, and panicked soldiers become tangled with terrified civilians caught in the maelstrom. The retreat is not a rout but a desperate scramble, a race against the gray-clad tide. Union officers scream orders lost in the cacophony, struggling to reform any semblance of a defense. Each step back means abandoning crucial ground, abandoning the wounded, sacrificing hope for the day. But then, a new authority rides onto the field, Major General Winfield Scott Hancock, sent by Meade, a man whose very presence seems to stabilize the crumbling morale. He surveys the desperate situation, the retreating thousands, and points to the high ground south of town, Cemetery Hill. This, he declares, is where they will make their stand. Under Hancock's determined gaze, the the shattered remnants of the I and 11 Corps rally on Cemetery Hill and Culp's Hill, hastily forming a crescent-shaped line. As the scorching sun dips below the horizon, bathing the battlefield in an eerie, bloody glow, Confederate commanders, exhausted by their triumph, inexplicably halt their pursuit. General Lee's crucial, uncharacteristic hesitation leaves the Union a breathtaking chance. The dawn of July 2 breaks with an oppressive humidity, promising another day of suffocating heat and unprecedented carnage. General Robert E. Lee, convinced the Union flank is vulnerable, issues orders for a massive assault on both ends of the now curved Federal line. This is the day he plans to break the Union, to shatter the Army of the Potomac and open the road to Washington. By late afternoon, the earth trembles as General James Longstreet's 1st Corps finally launches its attack on the Union left. Overwhelming numbers crash into exposed Federal positions at the Peach Orchard and the Wheatfield, turning peaceful farmlands into scenes of unspeakable horror. The ground becomes a gruesome tapestry of blood and shattered bodies as thousands fall in minutes. Further south, a small, rocky hill, Little Round Top, remains undefended, a forgotten sentinel. But Union Chief Engineer Gouverneur K. Warren, seeing its strategic importance, frantically dispatches troops to secure it. This barren knob of granite, if lost, would unravel the entire Union left flank, opening the door for Confederate cannons to decimate the entire Federal line. As Confederate Brigadier General Evander M. Law's Alabamians surge up the rocky slopes, exhausted Union regiments arrive just in time, spearheaded by Colonel Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain's 20th Maine. Outnumbered, outflanked, and critically low on ammunition, the Maine men hold their ground for agonizing minutes, the very fate of the Union seemingly resting on their desperate courage. Bayonets glint in the fading light, a final, desperate gamble looms. With a primal scream, Chamberlain orders a bayonet charge down the rugged slope, a desperate, unthinkable maneuver that shocks the Confederates into retreat. As darkness finally descends, clinging like a shroud to the torn landscape, the Union line holds, battered and bleeding, but unbroken. But the cost is staggering, and the question hangs heavy in the humid night air: what fresh hell awaits them on the third and final day? A shroud over the carnage of July 2, the groans of the wounded rise from the darkened slopes of Little Round Top, mingling with the distant, mournful cries of whippoorwills. The Union holds, barely, but the cost is staggering. Thousands lie dead and dying, their youthful faces frozen in the final moment of struggle. Exhaustion, heavy as the humid air, settles over the battle-weary troops, but the silent, uneasy truce of night offers little comfort. For tomorrow, everyone knows, the true reckoning will come. As the first gray light of July 3 creeps over Seminary Ridge, General Robert E. Lee faces an agonizing choice. Despite 2 days of brutal fighting and horrific losses, his audacious spirit remains unbroken. He believes the Union line, battered and stretched, must have a weak point. He looks to the center, a mile-long stretch of open ground leading to Cemetery Ridge, and makes a decision that will define not only the battle, but the course of the war itself. This is where he will strike. Then, at precisely 1 p.m., a single cannon shot shatters the oppressive silence, a signal that ignites the greatest artillery barrage ever seen on the North American continent. Over 150 Confederate guns unleash a thunderous symphony of destruction upon the Union center, shaking the very earth. For 2 deafening hours, shells tear through the air, ripping apart trees, pulverizing fences, and showering the defenders on Cemetery Ridge with shrapnel and earth. It is an inferno designed to break the Union spirit, a prelude to a desperate, final gamble. As the barrage finally slackens, an impossible sight emerges from the tree line on Seminary Ridge. Nearly 12,500 Confederate soldiers, arranged in a magnificent, mile-long battle line, step out into the open. Led by Major General George Pickett, they begin their fateful march across 3/4 of a mile of open ground, towards the heart of the Union position. They are a shining, terrible wave of gray, a testament to courage and desperation, marching directly into the maw of death. The Union artillery, silent during the bombardment, now roars to life, tearing gaping holes in the advancing ranks. Canister shot, like giant shotgun blasts, sides down dozens at a time. The ground becomes slick with blood, littered with fallen men and discarded equipment. Yet, they press on, a river of humanity flowing towards an inescapable precipice. Soon, the musketry begins, a ceaseless, deadly hail of lead that rips flesh and shatters bone, turning the orderly advance into a desperate crawl. Against all odds, a small contingent, led by Brigadier General Lewis Armistead, reaches the Union line at a place known as the Angle. With a cry, Armistead leaps over the stone wall, placing his hand on a Union cannon, the ultimate symbolic capture. Hand-to-hand combat erupts, a desperate, bloody maelstrom of bayonets and clubbed muskets. For a terrifying, fleeting moment, the fate of the nation hangs in the balance, a desperate struggle at the high watermark of the Confederacy. But the breach is too narrow, the numbers too few. Union reinforcements surge forward, and the Confederate tide, having reached its peak, begins to recede. The charge falters, then breaks, shattering into a disorganized, panicked retreat. Thousands of men stream back across the deadly field, their uniforms tattered, their dreams broken. General Lee rides out to meet them, his voice choked with emotion, repeating, "It's all my fault." The weight of defeat, monumental and irreversible, settles heavy on his shoulders. When the final shots fade, the silence that descends upon Gettysburg is more profound than any noise. The field, once vibrant with life, is now a vast, open graveyard. Over 3 days, an unimaginable 51,000 men have become casualties, roughly 28,000 Confederates and 23,000 Union soldiers. The ground is soaked with blood, littered with the broken bodies of young men from every corner of a divided nation. The physical scars of this battle will take generations to heal, if they ever do. Gettysburg is a turning point, not the end. Lee's invasion of the North is decisively repelled, and the Confederacy will never again mount a major offensive threat to Union territory. Yet, the war itself will drag on for 2 more agonizing years, demanding an even greater toll of blood and treasure. The unfinished work that President Lincoln will speak of months later, the struggle for a new birth of freedom, for a nation truly united, has only just begun. The path forward remains fraught with peril, its ultimate destination uncertain.